So yesterday, Democrat Pete Buttigieg went on CNN to talk about Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, the 2024 presidential election, and he slammed Trump and JD Vance and MAGA as a whole. He did not hold back, specifically calling Trump scared and JD Vance a fraud. I love this from Pete Buttigieg. He is one of the best communicators in the Democratic Party, if not the best. So I'm glad to see him out there making the case for Kamala Harris. I have a couple of clips to show you from his CNN interview. They're both fantastic. The first one I want to show you is him calling out Donald Trump for refusing to debate Kamala Harris so far, or at least trying to come up with excuses not to. Take a look at the clip.
Donald Trump said today that he does want to debate Vice President Harris, maybe more so than once. One of the issues that
only after backing out of the debate he already agreed to, though, right?
Somehow today he has an issue with doing it with ABC.
Right, but he didn't when he agreed to it in the first place, right? I mean, I think the interesting thing about this is what changed from when he said he was ready to do an ABC debate and when he now says he's not. ABC didn't change. Donald Trump didn't change. But there's a new candidate, and clearly he hesitates to debate her on the exact same terms that he thought
so you think
would
he's
be okay.
Scared to debate her?
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Because I think she is going to be so effective, and she's going to lay bare his inability to talk about anything but himself and his past. I think what you'll see is two things that I'm excited for Americans to see. Yes, the contrast, the way, as she laid out very powerfully, she, as a prosecutor who has defended people from people like Donald Trump, is going to remind everybody about that record, but also a contrast in governing records. She's going to be, I think, very effective in reminding Americans that on issue after issue, they already agree with us. They already agree with her and Democrats. Americans agree with Democrats and disagree with Donald Trump on taxes and his agenda of tax cuts for the rich. They agree with Kamala Harris, Democrats, and disagree with Donald Trump on his removal of the right to choose in this country. And gun violence, marriage, you can go on down the list. I think she's very well positioned to remind Americans of that fact.
Yeah, incredibly well said by Pete Buttigieg. Look, Donald Trump is scared. He is terrified of debating Vice President Kamala Harris for a variety of reasons. Number one, she is effectively prosecuting the case against him. She's going to get up on that stage and talk about his crimes, his civil cases, all of that stuff, and how she, the prosecutor, upholds the rule of law and he, the criminal, breaks the law. She's going to make that distinction. Not only, that's kind of more of a moral argument, but from a policy argument as well, Trump doesn't want to have that debate. He does not want to get into it because the majority of the American people, overwhelming majority, support reproductive freedoms. They support capping insulin at $35 a month. They support fighting climate change. They support Biden's investments in manufacturing. They support this policy. They support Democratic policy on these issues. So Trump is going to get up there and still be rambling about the election, rambling about the FBI. Kamala Harris is going to say, okay, that was insane. Now let's talk about the future. Let's make the case for a better America, not air out our grievances like Donald Trump is doing over there. So Pete is right in the sense that he does not want to get on that debate stage because Kamala Harris is going to be able to expose the differences between herself and Donald Trump, the convicted felon. And what Pete Buttigieg is specifically referencing and what he's talking about with Caitlin Collins is that Trump is now threatening, sort of, that he's going to pull out from this ABC debate or not do it. And here's the post he made on his social media platform, Truth Social, about this, saying, quote, "My debate with crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, was slated to be broadcast on fake news ABC, the home of George Stephanopoulos, sometime in September. Now that Joe has not surprisingly quit the race, I think the debate with whomever the radical left Democrats choose should be held on Fox News rather than the very biased ABC. Thank you, DJT." So he's calling journalists like George Stephanopoulos and ABC, which is a pretty objective news network, biased, and he's suggesting that they go to Fox News. Fox News, the company that settled a lawsuit with Dominion, had to pay them over $780 million for claiming that the 2020 election was unfair. That company. So really, it's just an interesting pivot from Donald Trump. The pivot is he's scared. Again, as Buttigieg said, nothing has changed about this race other than the candidate, which means Donald Trump's mind about the debate has changed as well. He is scared. He is terrified. He wants to go on Fox. He wants to get those softball questions. These journalists at ABC are not going to do that. And he does not want that comparison between Kamala Harris and himself on the American people's TV screen. 50 million people plus would be watching this debate. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that kind of attention. So that first clip from Buttigieg was amazing. He really went after Donald Trump as well, but he didn't stop there. He didn't just stop with the man at the top of the ticket for the Republicans. He also went after Donald Trump's vice presidential pick, JD Vance, calling him a fraud. So take a look.
Do you think that there's someone she could pick as her vice president that would make him regret that choice?
Well, again, that's going to be her call, her process. But what I will say is that the choice of JD Vance is a regrettable choice because he's somebody who was at his most convincing and effective when he talked about how unfit for office Donald Trump is. And he has not explained any reason, other than, of course, his obvious interest in power, why he would have changed his mind on that. Remember, JD Vance's whole identity is that he is connected to Appalachia, a place that is being hurt so profoundly by the opioid crisis. So the fact that he didn't just refer to Donald Trump as an idiot, though he didn't just say all kinds of things about how he was terrible, but compared Donald Trump to opioids, that is literally the darkest, most negative thing someone connected to Appalachia could possibly say about a politician. And that was in public, right? In private, he was comparing him to Hitler, reportedly. He has yet to explain why his opinion would be any different other than his own search for power.
Yeah, Pete Buttigieg is holding every single one of these MAGA Republicans to account, and he does it so well. And he's absolutely right. JD Vance is a complete fraud. That's what he is. He is a fraud. Just back in 2016, 2020, he was calling Donald Trump America's Hitler. He was calling him noxious. He was calling him reprehensible and an opioid, as Pete Buttigieg kind of talked about right there. And then suddenly, like that, he switches. He decides, I'm going to run for the Senate in Ohio. He knows he can't win his primary race without the endorsement of Donald Trump because it's the cult of personality over there. And he says, you know what, I'm going to switch up. I'm going to start supporting Donald Trump. I love Trump. That's what JD Vance switched into. And then he gets the endorsement. He gets elected to the Senate. He becomes Donald Trump's biggest defender in the Senate, vetoing, or I should say voting against good policy that the Democrats wanted to pass simply because it's being passed by Democrats. And that's Donald Trump's orders. And then he becomes his vice president. And he loves him. Just like that. He flips on a dime. He says whatever it takes to get ahead, whatever it takes to get into some power. And isn't that just an awful characteristic to have as your vice president of the United States? So you have a fraud as VP, someone who will say whatever, do whatever, as long as it gives him more power, more influence. And then as the Republican nominee, you have a literal fraudster in the sense that he committed business fraud, bank fraud, all of this stuff. And he's a felon, and he's a sexual abuser, and he has an awful record as president the first time around. I mean, the Republicans are really not working with much over there. The Democrats, we have President Biden, who's incredibly experienced, has gotten a lot done. Vice President Kamala Harris, attorney, district attorney, attorney general, prosecutor, senator, vice president, qualified for the job. We have all these really talented people and an amazing vice president pick to come up. Shapiro, Mark Kelly, maybe Pete Buttigieg. That's what we got. They got felons and frauds. So I'm feeling pretty good as a Democrat, and I think Pete Buttigieg is making the case as to why Kamala Harris should be the next president of the United States, and we cannot go back to Donald Trump and his chaos. So amazing by Pete Buttigieg, always is by him. So just wanted to show you those couple of clips. He's always on fire. So I'll wrap up the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to subscribe down below. It goes an incredibly long way. Also drop a like on the video and comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. But as I always say, I appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.